What's up? What's up? What's up, guys?
Yo, yo, yo.
Hey,
Yo, welcome to another episode of the Smoking Jack broadcast. We got we got myself, Jay Ferg, filling in as the host tonight for our brother Chris. He's a little under the weather tonight, so we're gonna have to step up as a team and hold it down. We got the beautiful Miss Lenessa Terry, Puffin Pretty. We got my man Big Rob. And of course, we got a captain right there, Chris, but he ain't gonna say much tonight. But we gonna hold it down for him.
Yeah, he looked like he get ready to cook something for us. You got a
Yeah,
chef shirt on, man. What's going on?
he did too much over the weekend.
Got
He
my
overdid.
Don
Ah,
Kiki
that's what it
shirt
is.
on, and Karen Berger. We had an event over the weekend. It was a great event. I'm gonna leave it
Oh,
right
so
there.
you ain't tell me that part when you called me.
Oh, Jay, I thought you could get my Facebook, man. Karen
Nah,
Berger was. Look,
I've been,
It was nice.
she did her thing, man.
that's what's up, man. No, I had a big event this past weekend, so I was literally like in the trenches all weekend. So
So everybody
still
was
haven't
busy
gotten
this
into real
weekend
sleep.
but me.
Oh man, man, I tell you, I tell you would have enjoyed it, man. It was epic.
Oh,
We
yeah.
had some salsa going on. Her and Omar from Fratello Cigars.
Oh, that's the
And
He's
gentleman
been
she
a
was
pop
dancing
up.
with. I saw the
yeah,
gentleman she was
Surprised
dancing with.
yeah,
Okay.
it was
That's
really
what's up.
good. It was really good.
Great cigar selection. It was great.
Mm-hmm.
Really good. So, uh, well, Jay Ferg, go ahead, man. Knock it out. I know you got it in you.
Is
All
it
right, well,
frozen?
he's a little
Uh,
frozen right now. But
yeah,
look, Rob, what you got going on this weekend, man?
man. This weekend I did exactly nothing. I'm going through a little something,
Yeah,
In every life, a little rain must fall.
man.
But that's okay because cliche wise, you can't keep a good man down. So it
That's
was quiet,
exactly
and
That's
right.
right.
this is what it is. So
Hey, well, one thing about the rain, man, we know that when it falls, eventually the sun gonna shine. So
exactly,
Right.
it's all how
Right.
you look at it. It's all how you
that's
look
Yeah.
it.
at it.
That's it. Vanessa,
Well,
what
I
you
went
got
to
going?
We'll let Jay. Go ahead, Jay.
Go ahead, Jay. Go ahead, go.
no, I was gonna say I went to the Cigar Snob Oliva Cigar of the Year party on Saturday
Oh,
on
nice.
Miami Beach,
Wow.
which was pretty amazing. So I'm lucky enough to be smoking that Series V Oliva, the cigar of the year that they gave out in the gift bag. So
Mm,
for all of y'all, I got this.
all
Well,
right.
can you
Okay.
send us something? Send
Yeah.
us something, Jay.
Hey, look, just to let y'all know, I failed to tell you this. Jay Ferg, the Gurkha bags came in. Some nice, really military style bags. I'm going to get yours in the mail to you, ship it.
Nice.
Juan came through with his word, and Rob, of course, I got yours in the message to get yours before you leave. But Lenessa, what you got going on?
What didn't I do this weekend? So I had like four different events on Saturday. I went to the gun show in Virginia. I
Woo.
came,
All right.
you know, came over here to support Petworth and see my girl, Karen Berger, when she was in town. My brother's getting married in the DR in October, so I went to his engagement party. And then when I left here from
Mm,
Petworth, I went to a big party. Steve Twyman, one of our local cigar lounge owners, had a big party. It was huge. Like the cigar culture came out big time, and we really had a party, a really good time. We had the smoking outside, pool tables inside, and then on Sunday I went to the range so I could shoot with
Nice.
my new pistol that I got
she got the
last week.
Okay.
So,
she got the
Okay.
Springfield Hellcat, right?
oh yeah,
Yeah,
Ah,
that's
Hellcat's a good pistol. It's a very
yeah.
good
yeah.
pistol. I've actually been to Springfield's factories. I see how they produce those things, and the
Oh,
tolerances are really tight. Their manufacturing and engineering is on point. They've come a real long way from, they made a lot of strides, leaps and bounds quality wise. It's a good
Absolutely.
pistol.
I like it. I shot it for the first time on Sunday, so
That's
I had a good
good.
time.
That's
Yesterday.
good. Well, look, I'm looking forward to bringing our uh, guest on. Certainly, I mean, an absolute pleasure for me to have him on. Uh, Both I and Rob are natives of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. So as the time winds down, I'm getting more excited to be able to be a part of this venture with John and Philly Cigar Week, and proud to be not a sponsor, but oh my goodness,
And partner.
Partner. Partner with John in this venture. So, look, without further ado, I'm gonna bring on John and bring him back in. And Jay Ferg, if you don't mind, man, if you can welcome our host to the show, man. Well,
Hey,
I'm sorry.
I guess I got you.
Thank you.
So listen, man, we want to welcome our special guest tonight, Mr. John Armstrong of Philly Cigar Week. Everybody make some noise for John up in here tonight.
Yeah. All right.
John, it's great to have you on the show, man. I know you guys are getting close to showtime, so I know how that goes. So tell us a little bit about you and your background and how did you come to be Mr. Philly Cigar Week?
Well, first and foremost, I want to thank you all for having me. It's always a pleasure to kind of network with our brothers and sisters of the league from around the country. Special shout out to Chris and Lenessa. Thank you for your support for CIAA. Appreciate that.
Right.
I'm going to start with my trademark statement. I tell everyone I know that I don't really know. Can we curse in this show?
Go, man. You go ahead and
do whatever you want to do.
I don't know shit about cigars. I just love to smoke, right? And so I was brought into this space where one of my college teammates, brother by the name of Armstrong Singleton, played for the Bucks years ago. And he would always come to the temple for our annual spring football game with the box of cigars and would hand them out. And that was like my first introduction to it. A few years later, the Tampa Bay Bucks hosted the Super Bowl years ago. That's when I think the Giants were playing the Ravens.
Giants and Ravens. No, yeah, Giants and Ravens.
So I ended up being a guest at his house, and Tampa's where the Yankees have their off season, and so he would network with a lot of Yankees players that lived in his gated community, and they was always dropping them off cigars from their travels throughout the Dominican, Cuba, and all those other exotic places. Every time he would come home, you'd see a box of cigars in his driveway from the Yankees players. And so, anyway, I'm in his house, and it's my first time seeing a walk-in humidor in somebody's house, right? So I was like, well, damn, I didn't know you was that into it. But so that was my entree into it. So just smoking with Al and my Temple brothers and just learning the different facets of the cigar industry / world from that perspective. It wasn't until years later watching what was going on around the country in Atlanta, Houston, Miami, obviously, and seeing those things happening regarding the Cigar Week in that space. I just kind of came back to Philly, talked to a couple of my buddies that were heavily involved in the cigar space, and was asking them why not Philly? Like, why is this not happening here? And so last year was actually our second year. Year one was a true, what I would say, learning the ropes, so to speak, right? And
like
then
a test, took the training wheels off.
Exactly. And then one thing I quickly learned about the industry is that you have to be humble. You have to enter into it humbly, and you have to let them understand that you're not trying to come in and impose your will, but understand how it works locally. Then how do you enhance that from within? And so it took about 1.5 years to kind of get that, get my feet wet, going into the different shops, getting a feel for the local terrain. Last year, we took a different approach. We're not Miami, we're not Atlanta, we're not all those other places. Philly is uniquely Philly. And so I adopted my model from the Philly Restaurant Week model, where, every major city has some type of Restaurant Week format. So I would just tell the local shops, give me a listing of whatever you're doing that week, and I'm going to serve as the way of pushing it out there and becoming like the marketing arm for whatever you're doing as far as your cutting light and things of that nature. And then I just built into that or incorporated into that 2 to 3 signature events that would kind of serve as the staple events. And it was a formula that worked well for us. It wasn't more about overcrowding. Obviously, COVID had a lot to do with that. That played in our favor because, up until about a week prior to Cigar Week, Philly Cigar Week, our mayor had us at about a 25% indoor capacity. So we were fortunate about a week or two out, they relaxed that and increased to 50% for indoor capacity, but outdoor was 75%. And we were fortunate because most of our events were outdoor events, so it really worked in our favor. But so that's my entree into it. Still a student of the game. Um, Looking forward to continuing my travels around the country, getting a touch, feel, and kind of network with those brothers and sisters on the ground in those respective markets. But I learned a lot. Definitely. Um, I mean, DC's right down the road. I'm in DC about 10 times a year. My in-laws live down there, so I frequent DC quite often. But yeah, I'm just from a marketing perspective because I function more on the marketing side versus the cigar space. But I just see that there's a great collaboration there to kind of bring in some corporations to support what we're doing on the festival / cigar weeks components. But one of the things I'm looking forward to growing into is adding more of the educational components to the cigar week. The parties are fine. We're bringing that kind of component into it. So we'll have a few different things this year in addition to our signature events. We'll have a panel discussion. I mean, there's a whole other world outside of cigars as far as the cigar accessories, hats, the culture, kind of bringing that all into under one umbrella and kind of highlighting all of those different components.
Okay, so were you in the event space prior to you doing Philly Cigar Week? What's your background in terms of in the event space?
It was funny. I was the guy in college as a member of the football team, and we would go to UPenn or Temple or Drexel or whatever. I was the guy that had 25 of the players behind me saying, "All right, the party costs 20. All y'all give me 10. We're gonna hand this, and we're gonna go on this party." so, so, so I was always the organizer from day one, and to this day, like we just came out of our annual spring football game. So the event side of the tracks, I was fortunate when Allen Iverson was playing for the Sixers, doing quite a few of his events here in the city, and that morphed into doing some NBA All-Star Weekend projects around the country. And that's kind of where I learned, really kind of learned that whole component, what we call the traveling circus, right? And understanding how to network, communicate with local stakeholders in those cities, obviously navigate that whole sponsorship, activation, cultivation partnerships to get that corporate support. And so I kind of learned, and that's why I kind of made my bone. So transitioning into the Cigar Week space, bringing that same skill set has been a tremendous asset. And so we've been in the background starting to formulate a consortium with other cigar weeks around the country to start to tap into some of the big boys as far as supporting what we do. A lot of the major brands still quite don't understand what cigar weeks are around the country, especially in our space, the urban market. And so I'm excited about what that's going to help yield in time.
Okay, so I'm glad you said that. So as far as the cigar weeks, right? Because there's a number of them going on right now around the country, right?
Sure.
So how would you define what a cigar week is?
Like I said earlier, my take on it is that I think in a lot of ways it should emulate like the restaurant weeks, where you're highlighting the best that you have to offer in your city, in your market, and giving them a platform to shine. I also understand that some of those shops that may be on the outlying areas may be difficult for people to come in town from other cities to kind of be at one centralized hub to hit all of those locations. But I also talked with the shops here locally and say, hey, let's make it interesting. So the way in which we do that is them providing me with content to put out there prior to people coming to the city. So something's going to resonate with them. For example, Vintage Cigar Lounge, great lounge. Ricky and Roger and his team run that spot. They're all both of the members of Kappas, so they have a very strong Divine Nine following and support base, and so utilizing that as something that's going to play in their favor. But as far as I was told last year that a lot of people felt that our cigar events felt like cigar events that turned into a party. And I also told that some other events felt like there was a party that they tried to make a cigar event. So we kind of want to make sure that we keep that distinction as far as we're setting out to do a cigar event first. We just have a good time. So every city, based on the geographical background and the assets they have available to them, they all do unique things that are unique to their city and their culture.
All right, so let
So
me ask you this. I'm gonna let, wait 1 second from Lenessa. So when you guys came in with the cigar week, right?
Mhm.
And as you started working on your event, and then as the years or two went by, and you started looking at every other week is a cigar week going on. How did you feel about that from a business perspective? Is that you think that's a good thing for the industry, or is it something that's kind of being overdone?
That's a great question. We were just talking about that last night. it's I think it's all about scalability, right? In your market. First and foremost, you have to make sure that you're highlighting your local market first, and then presenting them in such a way where we're showing the best that we have to offer, and hopefully that resonates for those who want to come see and feel and touch what Philly's about and for. There's definitely discussions about, I heard about when I first came into it, like the culture vultures and people of that nature or it's the money grab and things of that nature. And I kind of laughed because last year coming into it, we didn't have any visuals. We didn't have anything to tell the Philadelphia story as far as what the cigar lounges were like, what they consisted of. So when I signed my deal with BM Suntory, which is our liquor sponsor, one of the first conversation we had was like, well, how do we want to move forward with this activation? I said, well, I need a budget that's going to help tell our story first. Let's showcase some shops. We'll do a few events. They'll kind of see us interacting in the cigar space. Secondly, the all of the cigar shops, I said, we're not charging y'all to be a part of this. Just come on board, send me your information. Let's get it out there. Now, to your question, as far as that component of the saturation, and is it getting oversaturated? I can say yes and no, right? And for those cities that are doing it and have a strong support team, once again, it's all about sustainability. If you don't have a support base and that support system, I think it's going to come and go. You know what I'm saying? And then
Right.
more importantly, there's a funding model that comes behind this, and so certain cities are driven by a group of by a consortium that are all interconnected to the cigar space already. So they may be cigar, they own their own cigars, they own their own lounges, so they're coming together to collaborate. That has some sustainability because they already have their own base, they have their brick and mortars, and they can point people in the right direction. But someone like myself as an event planner, a little bit more challenging because I don't own a brick and mortar, I don't own a cigar, so I have to play the connecting of the dots game. And then from the sponsorship world, I've just learned over the years that you kind of have to deliver on a promise, making sure that that activation matches that sponsorship, and then everything works smoothly in between. But I can honestly say that within 2 years ago, I think there's about 20, 25 cigar weeks right now around the country, if not growing. Um, but yeah, so it's all about the local sustainability first.
All right, Vanessa, you had a question?
Well, I'll follow up to that one first. So I met a guy over the weekend, and he said he was selling cigars at the gun show, which was nice. I mean, nobody else was there selling cigars. So of course I talked to him, introduced myself, didn't know him, and he said, yeah, he said maybe we can do an event together. I'm thinking about doing like a DC like cigar week type thing, and I said, well, you might want to do your homework first because there's like 2 DC cigar weeks already. So people don't know. They jump into it. They sell cigars. You have to get out and network and do your homework. So I definitely applaud you guys for what you're doing, like building, sponsorship around it. You have an actual plan, it's strategic, and everything is like operating like a business, not just a party, right?
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to ask you a question because you mentioned that you only had Philly Cigar Week or been doing it for 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
I remember actually participating as a vendor. Puffin Pretty participated as a vendor in Philly Cigar Week 2018.
Yep.
So did you have anything to do with that one? Tell me the difference between the last two
So,
years and back, years ago.
sure. Absolutely. So yeah, so that was actually our first one. And so behind the scenes, I was so new coming into it, I heavily relied on the local guys that were into space to say, hey, what lounges should we reach out to? How do we move forward? How do we pull this all together? And then kind of stepped back and just worked on the venue procurement and getting all of those ducks lined up. And if you could recall, we had Gotham Social that year, which is a beautiful venue we had, but the ownership just didn't work with us, right? And at the last minute,
Right.
we were, in my best effort, I was just trying to stay out of jail. So it was one of those things where they reneged on the contracts, everything we were trying to put forth. They everything possible they could do, they did, but we just had to weather the storm, and we came through it. And so we had learned a lot of valuable lessons. First and foremost, it's about getting contracts with everyone moving forward, right, from
Right.
top to bottom, and that helped kind of set the tone for the conversation and the narrative. Whether it's an in-kind thing or not, if it's a free this or free that, we have agreement outlining that memorandum of understanding. This is what you're getting. Here's what you're setting up, and so on and so forth. That was a valuable lesson. And then for those that are outside of the event planning world, whether you're a party promoter, whatever the case may be, it's a lot different in the cigar space because it's not just they're not there for a party. They're there to kind of fellowship and connect the dots with like-minded people. And so it's a really different world as far as connecting those dots. So that year one, looking back at that, I wish I wouldn't change anything if I could, but that one, it was just who knew that the relationship with the venue would go that way. But I told my team, I said, in the sports world, you got to adapt and react, right? So we got to come out to halftime, make those adjustments, and move forward. But we learned a lot of valuable lessons. And so that following year, or a year and a half after that, I kind of had to circle back, and that's when I went and adopted that model of the restaurant week. When I was going to the lounge and saying, hey, this is what I would like to do. This is how I think we can both benefit and kind of get the word out there. And obviously, COVID being what it was at the time,
Right.
worked for us and against us because it allowed us to have great direct conversations. And then we had to be very strategic as to working around those guidelines. So we had a lot of conversations. But yeah, so year one was definitely baptism by fire.
But you know what? You couldn't tell because behind the scenes, you kept it behind the scenes, and that's the key thing. Nobody else knew there was chaos going on. Maybe a couple of your partners and some of the other folks. I couldn't tell. I had a great time.
It was all going down in the back alley behind the building.
Right, but you got to keep it there. That's the key. You did a good job there.
Thank you.
Robbie, have any questions for John?
Yeah, sure. First off, John, I want to say it's a pleasure meeting you.
Thank you.
And I love your story. It's nice to finally meet somebody else besides Chris that's from around the way. I remember being a kid and running down there to Checkers across the street from Temple. When I was in high school, they was the only ones that was open all night to have French fries that was worth a damn. But I did a little bit of time in Villanova up the road from you. But I got my cigars. I got into cigars when I was a Philly cop. And so, being on a TAC team and stuff, when things were successful, the youngest dude on the team had to buy cigars for everybody on the team, and you better not show up with no BS. You had to know what you was doing. But, I lived in Horsham for a while. I had a house out in Buckingham. And I belonged to, 611 Cigars.
Okay.
Up there on 611 in Horsham for a long time. I belonged to that club up there, that smoking club. So I definitely can relate to all the different cigars in the outlying areas and stuff, the cigar shops in the outlying areas and stuff, and how you're trying to build it up from your, like you said earlier, locally and then branch it out. So it does my heart good. I won't miss this for the world, man. I can't wait to meet you in person. But my question for you is, what is it that first off, I think that it's a pleasure to see somebody that's trying to do something so mature and bring something so positive to the, especially the Black experience, to the cigar world, because believe it or not, we're new to this. I mean, just Black people being into cigars as much as we are bringing a whole new revenue generating stream into the cigar industry within the last 10 or 20 years. So, they can call whatever they want to call it. They can call it money grab. No one really gives a damn. As long as I get the stick that I like, and you get the stick you like, we're good to go. But it's nice when you educate people. Like Ashton was started down on Jewelers Row, Ashton Cigars. And there's a lot of history for cigars in Philadelphia proper. So I'm looking forward to reading and hearing about that. But my question for you is what exactly are your goals? I know Philly Cigar Week is going to be big, and as time goes on, you're going to get out from behind the 8 ball. You know what I mean? And I got the utmost confidence in you. You guys are growing, learning every year that goes by. But what are your goals? What are your aspirations for your portion of Philly Cigar Week? Where do you want to see it go?
Sure, it's a great question. It's kind of funny. The initially going into it and then see what was going on around the country, it was just a matter of taking like that saying from the marketing world, that Honda recipe for success, taking the best practices and then making the best widget that you can make, right? And so with that being said, that was kind of the game plan, but then maximizing the venues that we had in Philadelphia to bring that to life. So last year we were fortunate. There was a new cigar lounge that opened up on the waterfront called Cigar Code. And when I met the owners of Cigar Code, we met up at the lounge that I was a member at up at Conshohocken Cigar Republic. And we spoke for like 4 hours. They were showing me the artistic renditions and the layouts and the designs. And I said, if this club if it looks half the way you're showing me, it's going to be probably one of the best clubs in the East Coast, right? So they came close to it because it's a hybrid. It's a cigar lounge / nightclub. But they have their own defined space. But we were able to, and fortunate to have two of our events there last year. We had our opening event, and then we had our Thursday night event, our Havana Nights event there. But and to this day, I don't know how, but they're one of the only lounges in the city to have food. So my first thing was just kind of build something that can be self-perpetuating. But quite honestly, the Cigar Week thing was a Trojan horse for me for one in one regards. I knew from the marketing aspect for just not in Philadelphia, but cigar lounges around the country, the biggest challenge you have in a heavily regulated industry is marketing and advertisement, right? And so you could call years ago in the early 80s, you would go be in a barbershop and a guy walks in with a hip hop, the disc to play on the DVD that will play all the latest videos. You're just watching that. I was thinking about taking a grassroots approach and doing. You'll see a lot of my flyers has cigars in the city, and so I had this platform and this idea of launching a Cigars in the City magazine that'll be unique to those cities. So Cigars in the City Philly, Cigars in the City DC, Cigars in the City whatever. Local bi-monthly publication that's 32-page publication, 20 pages dedicated to the local cigar industry, where they can kind of play. Those magazines will be given out local barbershops, hair salons, hotels in the nearby surrounding areas. Pre-publication, about 1,000 magazines per market on a bi-monthly basis. And it just tells the story for, by, and about the local shops. And it wasn't designed for the big boys. It was just for the brick and mortars to have a place to tell their story, what's going on in the local market scene, and then slowly build that up over time. So that was my end goal. So Philly Cigar Week gave me a platform to get in the arena, network with the other cigar weeks around the country, which ultimately become natural seed, right, as far as going to those markets and helping to facilitate that growth and partnership and a collaboration. And so that's what I'm slowly building over time. So I want to get Philly Cigar Week where it becomes self-perpetuating, and we're not growing to the point where we're doing, Cirque du Soleil type events moving forward. Just finding a niche that works. And when I'm finding, once again, with best practices, I like what's going on in Houston, Atlanta, Cigar City Club in Atlanta, just that grown and sexy vibe. So live music, great stick. When we having a cigar event, that there's plenty of seating, because cigar events are not meant to be standing up and congregating. You want to sit down and chat and smoke and sip and provide that type of atmosphere. So that's my goal for Philadelphia for sustainability. But the future, I want to get into that whole further develop that Cigars in the City magazine. And you're going to start seeing more of that going into the tail end of the year and coming out first of the year. You'll start seeing some release dates as to what markets we're going to start in. And over the next 8 months, my travels will just take me to those cities for those cities that I'm looking to launch first. So we're going to launch about 10 cities at one time. But I got enough of a buzz and an interest for it that I think it's going to be hugely successful. With it, everyone talks about the paper magazines are going away to dinosaur. And to a certain extent, I agree. But then to a certain extent, in the shops and the lounges, if it's for, by, and about us, I think it's something that's going to resonate. And then, and like, for example, this whole podcast world industry is totally new to me, right? So I'm just happy to be a part of it and learning from that point. But there's still I look at my pops. He likes to read the newspaper. He still does read the newspaper. You know what I'm saying? To kind of just providing that platform. But so that's the end goal. So getting Philly Cigar Week sustainable, leveraging those relationships to kind of build up that platform for another marketing source of information.
Okay, my second and last question is one of the things that I know that you mentioned earlier is you said that you don't have a cigar, that you don't have a brick and mortar, and so you're sort of like you're the master artist, the painter. You're bringing everything together. You're making things mesh and vibe, and timing's right, and you want to make sure that the event is placed properly and that people have a good time. I absolutely love that type of unconventional, asymmetric type of marketing ploy planning because you're taking away that people wouldn't normally think about going about advertising and promoting and stuff, and you're hitting them like your launch of your magazine. I think that's absolutely brilliant, and I wish you the utmost success on that. But to my question is this, and it's a rather simple one. What is your favorite stick at the moment?
Ooh. So my cigar
And
heads get on
it's
me.
simple, but it's hard, right?
Right.
My cigar heads get on me because I started with the flavor of cigars, right? And so I was at the upsetter, the Brown Betty, right? But then I went up to Macau up in Ben Salem and met Frankie from up there, and he kind of like almost laughed me at a cigar lounge. And so he handed me a Patron 1926, and that's been my favorite stick moving forward as far as where I like to be. And then Chris up there just raised the bar. He presented me with some Opus X's down in Baltimore. So now I'm like definitely a fan of that. But it's almost like going from oldie pockets to champagne dream. But yes. So for the 1926, I like my father. I like the Drew Estate, the pig. You know what I'm saying? So I stay within that. I don't kind of jump around too many different variations, but that's kind of where my palate lies.
Gotcha.
So you mentioned a few times earlier that it's about collaborating with other cigar weeks around the country. I know for a period of time, you guys were teasing on your Instagrams. I follow you on Instagram. You were teasing MDP. Is that more of a collaborative project that you're working on for the future, or?
Yeah,
I have my attention. I'm like,
yes. So we that was a partnership we were looking to we were developing for Miami, Dallas, Philly, and then we also had Vegas as well. And so we kind of pulled back the lens because it wasn't the right time. So I kind of wanted. So we were in Miami. We kind of made a conscious decision to kind of step back because anytime you get into a collaboration, you have to make sure that it's one band, one sound, right? And everyone has to understand the objectives at hand. My objective may not be the other market's objective, and so on and so forth. So we kind of pull back to kind of say, you know what, let's just get through this year. Let's come back to the table, bring some more people around the table, right? Because it has to be a lot more viewpoints that kind of shape the direction we're trying to go in. It's kind of reminiscent of, if you remember years ago when First Fridays was popular, every city in the country had a First Fridays party. That was the shit, right? And so I remember moving back to Philadelphia, and my college teammates were the ones running the First Fridays in Philly. And so I was blown away because that was before all of the social media stuff. You got an email on that Wednesday or Thursday. It told you where the party was on that Friday, and you had 1,000+ people there. So I connected with the guys in Philly and a few others. And at the time, I was doing my All-Star Weekend stuff. And I was connecting with them with some people up in New York from the J. Walter Thompson agency that handled like a lot of the big marketing brands. And so I brought them actually down to Philadelphia. And the one First Friday that we went to was at we held a party at the Wells Fargo Center, or the Wachovia Center at the time. And so my rep that I was dealing with at the time, she saw that. She said, "Now, John, I love it, but I can't justify spending a boatload of money in Philly. Are these organizations connected around the country? And if so, if I can get a 3 to 4 market connection, I can then start doing some regional stuff." And so at the time, we were trying to connect Atlanta, Philly, DC, and believe it or not, at that time, Denver, Colorado had the largest First Fridays in the country at that time. And so I was trying to play connecting the dots within that, and then just couldn't find a happy medium, and so it fell apart. About 5 years later, out of nowhere, you saw the Budweiser Universal First Fridays came into play. So Budweiser, as a company, set forth these parameters and these guidelines that the First Friday organizations can tap into that. Based on meeting certain criteria, they can draw down money to support their local events in their particular cities. And so we knew then it was something that could work. It's just whether or not they would come together and organize to be able to have enough bandwidth and power to kind of pull those revenue sources our way. So that's the same thing I'm looking to do with some of the cigar weeks. So we can kind of come together. The demographics are there, right? The demographics are immensely there because we hit all of the check boxes. In the marketing world, there's a huge gap between everyone's fighting for that, the younger generation that the cell phone carrying, or they have to have the latest of everything. But now companies have a way of tapping into the empty nesters that have a certain means of economic resources that are all coming to one place at one time, right? For years, it was the Essence Festival. They knew they can tap into a certain demographic at the Essence Festival and hit all the check boxes. But the cigar community puts Essence Festivals around the country multiple times a year with that same demographic in smaller pockets. So those are one thing we're looking to do through that. But yeah, so what you saw was the beginning of something we were looking to launch. We realized we were too premature. We were moving too fast. We decided to pull it back to make it make sense. We knew we wouldn't have a second chance to relaunch that.
Got you. I got you.
So John, I have a question. So behind every successful person or event, there's a team. Who is your team? Tell us about the team that you have behind you.
So I leveraged I lucked up with the brand ambassador marketing component, right? And so it was a shared wealth. So even us being selected as the top cigar week in the country, that was everything to do with the brand ambassadors. And so, and hats off to them. I had so when going into it, there was some challenges. People were like, "Well, John, why you select this person? They don't know nothing about cigars. It's that person." I was just generally selecting good people, right? People that liked and enjoyed other people and other people's company. And so it was a matter of them getting the word out, the right word out, and then just, being able to answer questions in an effective, efficient manner. And then going back to certain people's skill sets. I got one guy that just writes great captions. He's our lyricist, right? He puts teasing it that way. I have another person that is that one person that goes to every cigar lounge in the city. So I need you to be Paul Revere, right? You go to the lounge and keep them informed. They may not necessarily see me, but they know they see somebody coming into the lounge talking about the project. And if there's an issue, bring it back to the table and say, "Hey, John, bless you. If there's something that needs to be addressed, we talk about that way." So that's how I kind of put together the team, just tapping into the resources. And then having, once they signed up, like each brand ambassador this year got an email back saying, "This is your role, this is your responsibility." And it mapped it out for them in detail before they signed on. Obviously, the perks I get, the free entry, the free receptions, the happy hours, and other stuff. And then we kind of made it appealing and impactful for them in that way. But a lot of them just do it for the love of the cigar and the leaf and wanted to put Philly first. So I was fortunate in that regard. So year one, I was trying to do a lot. But when I handed it off to the guys that were doing it, like I said, I just dealt with the venues. So last year was a lot more fun because we just kind of played around with it, and we're continuing on that. Just yesterday we had our brand ambassador, we called it Media Day, down at the Hillside Hotel. We did and we kind of we married that with what Mike Jackson had going on the boat. So once we wrapped up around 5 o'clock, we all went down to the Mooshaloon and enjoyed the cigar event that Mike had on the Mooshaloon with the Escobar. And we had about 700 to 800 people on that boat yesterday. It was amazing. So yeah, so that's how we built the team together this year. So we put someone that's a point person for the brand ambassadors. We put someone that's responsible for reaching out to the cigar shops, getting their cut and light events, feeding that stuff back over to us in a timely manner, getting the flyers out, the tickets out, all of that type of stuff. So that was a huge benefit for implementing those types departments and categories to kind of break it down.
In terms of your partners, I know you guys have some good partners. What has been the response from brands, actual cigar brands, to the concept of I know you have the liquors on lock, but what an actual being that this is a cigar week, how's the feedback been from actual cigar brands in terms of supporting what you're doing?
Great question. So I recall last year going into the process, I was strategically identifying cigar brands that were regionally positioned to where they were known in their market, in their territory. I was kind of selecting them to say, hey, if I get this group out of Virginia, that's going to bring the Virginia crowd. If I get this group out of DC, that's going to bring the DC crowd. And it kind of worked for us tremendously last year. And then I took the feedback from them after the event and just doing some debriefings. And you have some cigar lounges cigar companies that, like, for example, Drunk Chicken only has Drunk Chicken. Cloud Cigars only has Cloud. For example, like I'll use Chris with Petworth, who runs the gamut, right? And so making sure that there's a place and a space for them to not overlap, where they can all make money, prosper, and build relationships and build clients. And so that was a learning lesson and some feedback I took from last year. But just typically making it a true open air market where they come in, they set up shop. What I learned moving forward is that prior to this year, we're trying to do a better job of educating them about who we have coming in, where they're from, and how they can connect to them, even if they can't make it to Cigar Week. If you're ever going through DC, stop by Petworth. You're ever going through Philly, stop by Vintage. You're ever going through up in New York, go to this spot. So those are the things we're looking to do and implement from an educational standpoint. I was fortunate over the past 18 months to build a very strong database, and I can now leverage differently. So I can send out individual email blasts that will go directly out to my audience for that one partner each time. So before Philly Cigar Week happens, all of our people will get a direct dedicated email from all of our partners, educating them about that particular partner that's coming in town. So hopefully it resonates with them. For example, Flavor Cigars out of Atlanta with Kim and her husband Alonzo, they're coming up. They're doing a tasting for their new brand of Flavor Cigars. So hopefully, if we do a well enough job when they come into Philly, they're going to be looking for that table and touching it that way. So that's one of the ways we took the feedback from last year and how we're trying to look to highlight the partners this year.
So as your target, in terms of brands that you're working with, as your target market, are you particularly hitting the boutique Black-owned brands, or are you going outside the realm at all?
I think we hit a little bit of both. For example, we did something unique with Escobar Cigars based on what I saw down in Miami, where they had a huge presence down there. So we're doing something exclusive for them on the boat on June 16th. Moving forward, with the local brick and mortars, trying to have them and educate them as to, because there's a huge space for that whole boutique space, like whether it's Black-owned wines, Black-owned cigar lounges, or Black-owned cigar brands, carving out that niche. So one of the ways we're looking to address that this year is through the panel discussion that we're going to have taking place during Cigar Week. I don't think just yet we're big enough, just venue-wise, to have a whole section and then a different section. But I think just naturally we just have a unique, diverse audience with Kim and her husband Alonzo, Drunk Chicken, Cloud Cigars, Vintage, and then obviously with the Avengers coming up for the most part. This year we leveraged Ashton to be our initial kickoff partner on Monday for our brand ambassadors and VIPs, and I think that was that came to us by way of just persistence, right? Year one, I knew I wasn't ready to go to them and ask them for support because we didn't really know what we were doing and how we were doing it. This year, when I had Bub, which is one of our brand ambassadors who works for Ashton's, we sat down in Vegas this past summer at the PCA. Bub was like, yo, my boss had asked me, like, how do we want to connect with them? He sees what we're doing, he sees we're getting notoriety, but how do we make this make sense? And I said, well, let's have a reception held at Ashton's, 1. 2, I need Ashton to be on site and be accessible, right? So they're going to come out on Friday at the happy hour at Xfinity Live. We're giving out free cigars there for that 5 to 9 component. But moving forward, creating that space to have those different unique outlets or opportunities is something we definitely want to entertain. Definitely want to entertain.
Well, I've been in this. Yeah.
I'm gonna get in here now. We got about 10 more minutes, and got to get not so much questions, but I want to kind of give some kudos to John in this regard here. First of all, I love your candor about not knowing a whole lot about cigars. You get a lot of people that probably and I'm not going to say industry, but in the area, in the arena, to what you're doing, will swear they know this, that, and the other about cigars. What you've done, and I believe, is you had a prevision and turned it into a vision. And the most important thing that you've done is, and I believe Jay Ferg can attest to this, is that you have, and he's, I know, an event planner, and you are. I think that is one of the most intricate pieces to what you're doing right now, because it allows you to take that prevision, turn it into a vision, and then market it in the way that it should be marketed, understanding what the cigar smokers want, need, understanding what those who come want to smoke cigars and have a party at the same time. So you've taken it and made it an all-around platform for everybody. And I really don't think, one, it's about the money for you. I mean, at the end of the day, the bottom line is to make money, but you've included a demographic that involves the whole culture. And so that is very important, and I applaud you for that. If I had to ask the question, I would ask, and this is in regards to Lit Torch, because I'm going to have her on soon, but how has the Lit Torch app, the Lit Torch experience, the Lit Torch marketing platform and tool help push? Because this is a Lit Torch, what is it? Powered by Lit Torch experience.
Exactly.
So,
Great question.
help me.
So it's funny. Susie and I met last year going into Philly Cigar Week, and I don't know when the term came about, but the nickname that came up was we call it a connector in chief, right? And so when she first told me about the platform, I was just blown away about, even if as a promoter, I want to tap into that for GP, right? Just to be able to touch people with the push of a button. I was blown away at the lack of shops that weren't just jumping on that, just to be in the know and to be accessible by those that want to be in the know, or to touch and relate and get and to be able to benefit from that service. So Susie has probably single-handedly been one of the biggest supporters and guiding post mentors as well for a lot of the things that we're doing for the Cigar Week. She came down for a photo shoot last year. It was a Friday night on Black History Month. The following day, her and a few people that were still in town came over to my brunch, and as we were talking, she's like, "Listen, you need a." So she's the one that connected me with Cigar Mike. I didn't know Cigar Mike from a can of paint, and so she was like, "Listen, he's a great brother. He's connected heavily in the cigar community in the South. I think he'd be a great addition to what you're doing, to help you further expand your market reach." And so from day one, I entrusted her advice, her support, and literally watching her app grow from the time that I met her to now. I think she's close to 8,000 people, if not over by now. It's just amazing testament to the work that she puts in. And it's funny because I think some of the lounge owners that I was talking with don't understand that we're becoming more and more savvy with technology than most people think. They think that older black people are already tied into and tapped into this, but that's the furthest thing from the truth, right? But at the same time, to even with my brand ambassadors, telling them yesterday, hey, download this app and as they were going through our little marketing gauntlet, I come over here just to walk them through it, and so they see that it's a great asset, especially the day of, the week of, when there's things that are changing on the fly, or with the push of a button. All right, this is sun just changed, everything's over here. That's a huge asset. I was about 10 years ago, we were laughing about how the shift in the national party scene changed when social media came around, right? Because back in the day, if a party was a flop, there was no one there with a social media to show you real time there was a flop, right? It was a 20 people outside. They gave one person go inside and see if it's popping, and then call us, and then we'll come on in. So the world as we know it is changing, and so what she's doing with that platform and that app, uh, it was a no-brainer for when she said, "Hey, I want to come on board and help support," and with this year's event, that we established that partnership as far as collaborating and going with the whole powered by mantra. But yeah, so that was it. Everything when we talking was like twice a day because we just keep bouncing ideas off each other, and just seeing her growth within going from the app to the lit torch experience events. It's just a natural extension because you're connecting to people in so many different ways. But I would encourage any shops that are out there, lounges, if you haven't tapped in, tap in. It's a great source of information and to keep your people informed.
Right, I get that. I'm running low on battery here. But look here, I also have to applaud you on the fact that whereas everything seems to be so organized thus far. I've looked at your flyers, I've saw your flyers, I've promoted your flyers. I haven't seen additional flyers come out with changes to this, change 1 to change 2, change 3 to change 4. And I think that is from solid one event planning. I've seen stuff all over the place here and there, not slamming other individuals or cigar venues, but I think that it adds a particular value. I don't even there's not even a bar that you've raised. I believe right now you're setting the bar for really what is to come. And I think if anybody, and like you said, every city and every venue is going to be different. But I tell you, from what you've done and how you tapped into the culture of Philadelphia itself, the cigar lounge experiences to provide other people venues and opportunities to go here and there in their respective places that one giving support to other shops, other venues, and you wouldn't believe how that will add to next year because it's going to build and it's going to grow bigger and bigger. So I don't have a lot of questions because one, everybody has asked some great questions. Rob, Jay Ferg, appreciate y'all with the questions. I just want to give, there was a couple questions that was out there. Shay Perkins, she said, we would love to have you come to Atlanta and we all still love a good magazine. So that's good. David said, man, I haven't heard this name in a while. Are you still doing Kavanaugh's?
Yeah, so Kavanaugh's, well, actually, we're kicking off Kavanaugh's on Saturday, May 28th, prior
Right.
to, because we have, under our annual contract, we have Kavanaugh's the last Saturday of the month. That's our day smoking party from 2 p.m. to 8. So our kickoff event will take place with the brother out of Baltimore, DJ Tons. And so we're doing the Philadelphia versus Baltimore, the Ultimate Hat Game Party. It'll be our first kickoff event at Kavanaugh's. So stay tuned for that. I think we're launching the flyers for that this coming Wednesday or Thursday. So you'll start seeing that flood the timeline. So we're excited about that. Kavanaugh's did some amazing renovations. They took some of our feedback from last year because Kavanaugh's, for those that have attended it, is more like an island vibe. It's outdoor on the waterfront. They had picnic tables there last year that worked for their previous clientele. So they brought in some pub tables that are a little bit more traditional to a restaurant setting, high tops, pub tables. They actually expanded the other side of the deck. So we're excited about the renovations and our upcoming partnership. So stay tuned for those events.
All right. Well, I'm going to shorten this up real quick. Kai is ready. Kai Nelson is ready for us. Howard Holman, nephew, look, I appreciate you say, why am I under the weather and still smoking? Brother, I know this cigar tastes like crap right now. It's a good cigar, but it's not doing me any justice, and I probably shouldn't be smoking. I got some serious sinus infections going on. But I tell you, you must have got some kind of infection going on to think Baltimore is going to take over that event, brother. Philly is coming to represent, okay?
DC will represent as well.
Trust me and believe. The DMV is going to show up, and they are going to show up, but I'm going to tell you, you're not going to come to my city of brotherly love and think you're going to just take over nothing, brother. All right. Hey, man.
Get those hats ready. Get those hats ready.
Hey, look, I only got one hat, man. It's this right here. If I can win it with this is what I'm
Oh, I got hats. I got hats. We can do that. So, what do you do?
I think your battery went out.
Yeah, battery probably died.
All right.
It's all you, Jay.
Well, it's all me, but he has to end the show, so I don't know how I can't end it from my end, but it's all good. But John, we appreciate having you on, man. You gave us some great information. It's always great to speak to a fellow event promoter, because I produce events in Miami on a festival level. I've been doing this for 25 plus years. I've been doing cigar events for the past 5 years in Miami. So, I understand the assignment, you know what I mean? So I wish you continued success with what you're doing in Philly. And hopefully, if my schedule permits, I will try to, make it up there and support you guys and see what you guys got going on. I miss Philly. I haven't been to Philly in a long time. So I'm looking forward to getting back in the city, man.
Definitely. Love to have you. I definitely got to check out that Destination Herf next year.
Oh, it's gonna be a little. We got some things. We got some things. I can't even speak on some, but we're gonna be making some huge announcements in May. We have some deals that we're working on right now that we're finalizing. Of course, Caldwell is back as our title sponsor, as always. But we have some other brands that have reached out that are like, let's do some things. So we got some things.
I gotta put you in touch with one of our Temple alumni. Mark Strickland is down there, former Miami Heat, but he made Miami his home. So I got to connect y'all. Big cigar guy.
Strick is my man. I worked for Zoe for 14 years. So, me and Strick are good friends. We
good stuff. Good
yeah,
stuff.
me and Strick go way back to the Zoe Summer Groove days. You know what I mean? We don't hung out. We don't had drinks together. We don't party together. So yeah, me and Strick we good. We good out here.
Good stuff.
And I know absolutely nobody. I said I absolutely know nobody. So I'll just be I'll be hanging on some tail straps, the tail feathers there.
Gotcha. All right, no problem.
So we about to wrap this up, man. Thank you guys for checking in with us tonight. Chris had a little technical difficulty.
Thank you very much for having me.
Check out. But
Howard Holman, we coming for you. I see the Baltimore is going to take over. We'll see how it.
All right, so John, I'm putting my number in the chat real quick so you can grab that before we click off. That's my number. If you're ever in Miami, you're gonna come down, whatever, holler at me, man. Let's connect. And I would like to say, I'm all about networking and connecting the dots with people around the country, especially in the same space that I'm in.
Definitely appreciate it. Likewise. Thank you, Rob. I see you there.
All right, man. All right, Rob.
Cool. Gentlemen, have a good one.